Welcome, time travelers and financial explorers. Today, we're embarking on an epic journey through the rise and fall of one of history's greatest economic powerhouses, the Roman Empire. But this isn't just a history lesson, it's a mirror to our modern world. Imagine a world where emperors like Julius Caesar wielded not just swords, not just the greatest armies in history, but financial instruments that shaped the destiny of nations. Sound familiar? It should, because today's fractional banking system is eerily similar to Rome's economic practices. Just as Rome minted wealth out of thin air, our banks create money with the stroke of a pen, rather the stroke of a keystroke. And what if there was a way to break free from the cycle of artificial wealth creation and inflation? Remember, we're looking for the symptom. So stay tuned for a history lesson on the rise and fall of Rome and what the simple solution is for you and your family to avoid a similar fate. Enter the concept of infinite banking, a modern day financial rebellion. A rebellion against the very practices that contributed to Rome's fall. It's like building your own personal Fort Knox, where every dollar is backed by real value, not just promises. It's not just fiat or monopoly money. So buckle up. We're about to uncover the hidden economic forces that built and broke an empire and reveal how you can apply these age-old lessons to safeguard your financial future. Are you ready to become the emperor of your own economic empire? Who wants to be an emperor? Show of hands? Let's begin. I want you to go back, way back. We're going back to like 27 BCE. That's before current era. Imagine the might of Rome. Imagine an emperor sitting on a gold-plated seat like that. Imagine that in your head. Imagine Rome existing for over 1,000 years. The beauty, the architecture, the art. And for context, we as a country just celebrated our 248th year this 4th of July. So think about the military might. Imagine thousands and thousands of the best armed warriors in the world. This was the backbone of imperial expansion and control over other cultures. Imagine a country so great that it existed for well over 1,000 years. The military might, the cultural influence, the beauty, the comfort, the economic dominance that was Rome for centuries and centuries. That is impressive. And what happened? Why did Rome fall? Many don't really know or understand or haven't heard the story that I'm going to share with all of you today. How did Rome fall? What was the reason that this majesty of Rome, this majestic, noble, beautiful place, this beautiful time in human development crumbled and was left in shambles? If we look at it, we can see that the cost of glory, the cost of Rome came at an astronomical price. Can you imagine having to not only arm all of those soldiers with the best equipment, the best weapons that money could buy? You also have to house them, feed them, and as Rome expanded, as they took tribute from other cultures, as they spread, their expenses were vast, just as their territories were. Imagine just the price of maintaining not only the complex government structure satisfying the ever-growing appetite and luxury of the elite, and Caesar's ambitions knew no bounds. He strained his imperial coffers by his luxurious lifestyle, by just the way he lived lavishly, by his taste for food and for wine and for all of the entertainment and things that came with being that powerful, basically a god in those times. And the question was, well, how could he have financed this enormous machine? But it became increasingly pressing. You know, it set the stage. Remember, we're talking about where did inflation come from? It set the stage for economic decisions that would have far-reaching consequences above and beyond anything imaginable. So Rome's wealth, right? Let's look at the source of the wealth. Where did all the money to support this amazing military and culture and all of the architecture, just the beauty of Rome? Think about the Colosseum. It came from, number one, conquest. It came from the military victories. From each new territory brought the spoils of war, gold, silver, valuable artifacts back to Rome, back to Caesar. Tribute. People paid tribute to be protected by Rome. And it was taxes, remember? And if we look at politicians today, everyone knows if we tax the people too much, what happens? We revolt. That's how we became the United States 248 years ago, because of the taxes and the structure. And then there was slavery, right? When they're conquering these new areas, it brings in people, it brings in cheap labor, it brings in a way to support this lavish lifestyle that was endured by so many. And then you have Rome's ability to trade. They created vast networks by road, by sea. They facilitated trade, and they brought these luxury goods and additional wealth to the empire. And this wealth accumulation over the years through conquest was inherently unstable. There's only so much land, there are only so many people that you can take from. And as the empire kind of reached its territory limits, the flow of new wealth began to slow. The flow of gold and silver and precious artifacts slowed. And it exposed the fragility and the expense of Rome's economic foundation, of how they were expanding their glory. And so Caesar, now you guys are really going to enjoy this story. So what did Caesar do? Anyone have a guess? What did Caesar do? We'll call it creative accounting. Caesar saw, oh man, like my military, the cost, the expansiveness of our empire and my lifestyle, it requires fuel, it requires energy, it requires money to make this go round, this big machine, this wheel go round. And as he was faced with the mounting expenses and the dwindling resources coming from the conquests, the Roman leaders turned to the creative and ultimately a destructive financial practice. They debased their currency. They debased their go-to solution, which was gold, silver, God's money, precious metals. And it started subtly. It started just a little bit here and there, just trimming the edges of gold coins was Caesar's first foray into this practice, right? Where he would just cut the corners of gold. Imagine this, imagine being a merchant back in those times. And all of a sudden, Caesar trims the gold coins. He mints new coins that are smaller in weight, smaller in size than the original gold coins. And now he pays who? He pays his military with these gold coins. And as they receive the money, they have to do what? They have to feed their families. They have to eat. So they go to the market. They go to the fishermen to buy the fish. And they hand him one of these new minted gold coins. And the fisherman takes the coin, hands him the fish, puts the coin in his pocket, pulls out the other gold coins, the original gold coins, like, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right. Starts bouncing the coin in his hand, feeling the weight of it. He's like, wait a minute, this is different. This is lighter. This is smaller than the original gold coins. So what's the merchant do? Hey, hold on a second there. It's going to be 2 gold coins now. It used to be 1, but with these new smaller gold coins, it's going to be 2. What just happened, folks? Inflation. All of a sudden, things became more expensive. But why? Not because the prices went up, because the money was debased, because the money was counterfeited. And now we've got this new influx of smaller gold coins, and this cycle begins to repeat. The next year, what's happening? Conquests are slowing down. The amount of gold and silver flowing into Rome is slowing down. But what didn't change? Right? We talk about how we have to overcome Parkinson's law all the time. What didn't change? Caesar's lust for wealth, for comfort, for the best foods, for the finest things money could buy. So with his lust, his thirst, it laid the groundwork for long-term economic chaos. You know, the slowly, as we're going to show you later in this, we're going to show you how this debasing of the coins, how this caused inflation, how this really started at a very small percentage, like 1 to 2%. The value of the Roman money started slipping slowly, almost imperceptible. The next time that Caesar had this need for money, he went to do the same thing, to clip the coins again. But what happens? The merchants, like, look at your coins today. If you have any coins in your pocket, pull it out. It has all the little edges, right? The merchants started stamping the edges of the coins so they could tell if they had been cut. So what happens now? Well, Caesar can't trim them again. He can't, because this short-term thinking is causing a long-term problem. Does that sound familiar? Has anyone heard that before? And so now, what does Caesar do? Instead of clipping them again, he starts melting down the precious treasures, and he starts introducing base metals. What does that mean? He starts introducing other metals to the mix. And these other metals, they're not as valuable as gold and silver. And they're replaced by metals like copper, which are just more abundant. There's not a shortage of copper. And it allowed more coins to be minted, and the cost of their value went down. And again, this is short-term thinking, short-term solutions causing long-term problems. And this is how inflation started. This is what inflation really is. Inflation is a symptom. Inflation is not rising in prices as we think of it today. Inflation is merely a symptom of what happens. And it causes, like anything in life, right? Things in motion tend to stay in motion. So like anything, this debasing of the value of the coins, of the metals themselves by Caesar, by his leaders, causes a ripple effect. The ripple effect causes the reduction in the precious metal content. The metal content's going down. Inflation's going up. You know, it used to be 1 coin for a fish, then it was 2, and now it's 3. It starts creating uncertainty because things are getting more expensive. It's getting harder for the middle class to live, for the merchant class to live. It's harder for his soldiers who are paid their wage to go and buy the things they need for their family. And people start becoming a little bit uneasy. You know, the merchants are struggling to price their goods fairly. They're resorting to barter, demanding payment in gold rather than in increasingly worthless coins. They want God's money again. Like, pay me in gold. I don't want these coins that aren't even real, that are copper. And the poor, whose meager savings were held in currency, found themselves slipping further and further into poverty. And the wealthy weren't immune. Like, even the wealthy weren't immune to this. As the vast hordes of coins depreciated in value, the once stable Roman economy began to teeter on the brink of chaos. Does this sound familiar? Does this sound like the boom and bust cycle that we see in our current economic times in the last 100 years here in our great country? It should feel very, very similar. And so we look at the consequences. Let's look at how flooding the market with first more coins and then less valuable coins over time. Look at the silver content in the denarius. In the 1st century AD, 90% was silver. It was like our dollar in 1957. If you look at the top of a dollar in 1957, it says backed by silver. Silver certificate, it actually says. Silver certificate. I should have had a slide of that for you guys. And then we looked at inflation's 1 to 2%, like I mentioned. Then we fast forward to another century, the 2nd century AD, and now the silver content's down to 70%. There's more coins. Inflation is rising. Inflation, again, is cause of what? More money being created out of thin air. It's like magic. But the magic has long-term effects on everyone. It is the ripple effect that I mentioned on the slide before. And that's the inflation at this point, a century later, is 5 to 10%. Now we're above where they say our inflation is now, but that's probably pretty close to our current time. Fast forward another century, now the silver content in the denarius is less than 5%. We go from 90 to less than 5% in just 200 years. That is insane. Now inflation's what? It's over 1,000% per year. Is this not shocking you guys a little bit? There's some kind of interaction here saying, wow, that's crazy. How did they think, how did the leaders think that this could possibly work? That we're defrauding the people, we're defrauding the hard-working citizens by increasingly devaluing their money, increasing the prices, making it harder for everyone to live, to work. Can you imagine over 1,000% per year in inflation? And now we're starting to see why Rome actually failed. The fall of the Roman Empire, the economic collapse, came from the hyperinflation and the loss of faith in Roman currency. And then the military became weaker because it's unable to pay the soldiers, unable to arm them. Rome struggled to maintain their armies. The social unrest, the hardships that came from this, it led to civil unrest, political instability. And eventually, people started leaving Rome. And it wasn't just that the armed forces got weaker. People left. People went to try to make it on their own, to live off the land, if you will. They began to leave in droves because they couldn't afford to feed their families. So why not go farm and fish and be outside of Rome, pulling people away, resources, money, economy. People were leaving the cities in droves. Again, does this sound familiar? Does this sound familiar to anything that we might be able to tie it back to? And Rome fell. And why did it fall? Because Caesar started clipping his denarius, his coins, and making new coins. He debased, devalued, stole from the people. And even though it happened slowly, insidiously over time, it eventually destroyed one of the greatest empires. Just think, over 1,000 years the Roman Empire thrived and was the pinnacle of society. And now all of you know how Rome failed. And so, how does this tie to today? What does this look like for us today? The parallel is our currency manipulation. You know, the story of Rome's economic decline holds striking parallels to our modern economic challenges. And our government, like Rome, like today's government, like Rome, grapples with the issues of debt, inflation, currency stability, and the temptation to use short-term thinking again through currency manipulation remains strong. Remember the housing bubble we talked about last week? And the financial crisis that followed, the chaos that followed, the people that lost all of their money, their hard-earned money. We saw this crisis. We saw the quantitative easing, the modern form of increasing money supply. And we're going to talk about how fractional banking at a very high level works today. We're not going to go into the depths, but we're going to talk about how these measures might show short-term solutions, relief, where we can go, things are good, things are back to normal, inflation is down, let's go spend money. We'll go out to dinner, we'll go to the movies, we'll take our family to a park, to Disney, right? We'll start doing things and going out because it seems okay. But as we saw with Rome, is it? Is it really okay? And I'm not trying to scare anyone, I just want you guys to start thinking differently. I want you to start opening your mind to the parallels of what happened from Caesar clipping money, causing inflation. And remember, inflation is a symptom. And our economy today is global. Like the slide says, it's global, it's interconnected, meaning the economic crisis can rise quickly and spread across borders. It's not just here at home that we're now worried about. It's more of a global economy. And again, not looking to worry anyone, I just want to educate you, show you the parallel and what you can do about it. So our government's financial paradox, the world's largest employer, our government today is the largest employer in the world with over 3 million employees. And over half of those employees armed to the teeth with the most modern and expensive military gear, equipment, that you could possibly own. And as we know, our taxes aren't really going up. We're kind of at a historical tax low. Why? Because if you try to tax the people, what happens? We rise up. We will revolt. We will not take high taxes. We already are under the strain of the government taking 25, 30, 40% of our money. You know, even though our taxes are the backbone of how our government makes money, they know that they can't raise the taxes. So what are they going to do? They're going to throw a bigger net and tax more things. But wait, what if there's a solution, y'all? What if there's a solution? I know we can't clip money. We can't legally print money, right? But what if we looked at Caesar and said, man, he had Rome last for a couple hundred centuries more with these practices. Do you think we could do the same thing? And so we look at today's lending cycle. We look at how our fractional reserve banking, just to quickly define fractional reserve banking, that means that the banks only have to keep a fractional amount of the money, a small amount, right? Fractional. Think of your fractions you did in school, a small amount of the money as backup. And so when we look, like let's say $1 million comes into a bank. Well, this first bank, and we're just going to talk about 3 levels. This will go 10 levels deep, but let's talk about 3 levels. The first loan that the bank does, since they have to take a fraction, 10%, and keep it in reserve, that means that that bank can lend out $900,000. $900,000 that they're earning a spread on, okay? Are you starting to see how money is created? Like Felix said, it's ridiculous. The second loan, that money, that $900,000 goes to another bank. So it goes from Orlando, now it's in Tampa, it's in a new bank. I'm just using different areas to kind of get the connection. And the next bank has to keep 10% of the $900,000. So they can lend out $810,000. And this is not happening in the hundreds of thousands, folks. This is happening in the millions and billions. That next bank, $810,000, right, goes to a third bank. Let's say it goes out for a big project or buying furniture for a big, store nationally where they buy $810,000 of furniture. They deposit all that money, buying the furniture, and that goes back into the bank. Now that bank takes the $810,000, reserves 10%, and they can lend out $729,000. And this goes on and on and on, and that $1 million initial dollars turns into 10 out of thin air. It's magical. You guys like a good magic trick? I feel like if I had a card, I just pulled it out from behind my ear, or a coin, that would just be the cherry or the icing on the cake here. Right? We're doing magic. We're showing you how today's system is even smarter than Caesar, because no one can see this. These are digital transfers. We don't see this. And the central bank, the Federal Reserve, it's backing all of this. We're just printing money out of thin air. There is no gold standard anymore. Since 1971, it's fiat money. It is monopoly money, and we are printing it faster than we can spend it. And this is what causes this influx of money during the 2008 crisis and afterwards. All of the government easing, all of the things that were, all the companies bailed out, causes. Now this is super high level and it's very basic. It's a lot more complicated than this. But the money supplies, you can see that initial deposit of $1 million, just within 3 loans, not 10 levels, just 3 loans, becomes $3.439 million. Can I get a whoa? Can I get a what? That's crazy. And so this system right here that I'm showing you, this is the invisible thief. This inflation that we all worry about, this is actually the invisible thief. And it's the Federal Reserve's role to influence this money practice, the money supply. And fractional reserve banking is how the banks create more money through lending. It expands the current money supply well beyond physical currency that exists, and it erodes our purchasing power. It erodes our roles as entrepreneurs, as folks that are going out and creating solutions. And it is, I almost hesitated using this term, but it is a magic trick. It is a multiplier of money created out of thin air. The initial deposit, the bank lending, and the money multiplication. And it shows how if you went down the line, that 1 million eventually becomes 25 million in new money. 25 million made from one. I mean, if this isn't better than clipping coins and putting them out into the market and debasing, I don't know what is. And so now we see the problem. I spent a lot of time going over the problem, tying parallels between Rome and today. The story of Rome's, economic decline holds parallels to today and what's happening and the booms and the busts and the cycle that we saw. So what are the roots of 100% reserve promise? What are the roots that bring us back to a standard, to a gold standard? Our government, like ancient Rome, is grappling with the same problems: inflation, debt, currency stability, and we're solving again the short-term problems, or our long-term problems we're trying to solve with short-term solutions by manipulating things. Manipulation never works. We can't manipulate. It's not creating. And this interconnectedness that we're seeing, so how do we go back and how do we take back control? It's a grassroots movement. It is how we, the people, are going to follow geniuses like Murray Rothbard, right? He said that we should have 100% reserve vision and return to fully backed deposits. This ensures financial stability. And how can we do this? Man, are we going to go and become politicians and convince people like, hey, we should get back on the gold standard? Let's really open up Fort Knox and see how much gold's there. Let's bring back gold to our country. Let's make sure that every dollar is backed by gold. Maybe, or maybe there's an easier way. Maybe there's a way where it can be a you and me solution. Where it's a you and me solution and we do what a lot of you here are doing already, or you're learning how to do. We take back the role of banking in our life by just changing one thing. We start leveraging our ability to take back radical ownership, to take responsibility. And we do this through Nelson Nash's teaching. We show you how you can leverage specially engineered whole life for personal financial control. We back our dollars with a dollar. You inject a dollar in, you can borrow a dollar out. There is no injecting a dollar in, borrowing $10 out. You make a spread by investing that money, and this is how you actually multiply money. But it's sound money. It's money backed by money. It's backed by something that has actual value. And you start building this guaranteed over time. It safeguards our wealth. It safeguards our future, ourselves, our family, our family's family, a century from now, from economic uncertainties, from ridiculous things that are happening that we have no control over. And also it gives us tax advantages. It's a more efficient way to bank. It's a more honest way to be. And it's a grassroots movement. It's embracing a new vision, a new idea. And to anyone who's new here, this might seem like, what are you talking about? You're out of your mind. But this infinite banking process, we teach a process. It is not a product. It is a specially engineered, mutually owned, dividend paying whole life is what we're using. But if you guys can show me something that works better, I will switch in an instant. I will move away from everything I just shared. But the whole point is this is something that gives us control. It is a long-term vision. It's a long-term vision building stability. It protects us from erosion. It's steady growth. It's not tied to booms and busts. It's not tied to a market. It's adopting the Austrian economist's perspective for sustainable financial growth. So, like we say, infinite banking is not taught, it's caught. Maybe a light bulb went in. Maybe you saw how you can tie Caesar and the debasement of coins and the flooding and creation of new money that eventually brought down a mighty 1,000-year-old empire like Rome, how it ties into our fractional reserve banking, and how when that light bulb goes on, how can you be part of a grassroots movement? How can you take back control of your money by just changing the one thing. Where does your savings, the savings that require discipline and hard work, not regret, remember the two pains, pain of discipline or the pain of regret? Our choice. Our choice. What do you guys choose? Which pain would you like? Do you want to have regret later on, or do you want to have the future that you're actually dreaming on and about and writing down in your big vision and having a pathway to get there? Today, I've showed you the history. I've showed you the pathway. I appreciate each and every one of you for being here. We showed you Rome and the fall of Rome. We showed you fractional reserve banking. And then we're giving you the equipment, the philosophy to adopt, if you want, to become financially stable, to become financially independent, and to create that for generations to come. So again, blessed to have you all here. As always, if you want to learn more, if you want to have a conversation with me, you can go to jason.beyourownbanker.com/30. And Felix, it's crazy how history repeats itself. And you know, our government is probably making it up as they go. If you start reading and digging into the education that's out there, to some of Becoming Your Own Banker by R. Nelson Nash, how privatized banking really works, you know, the creature of Jekyll Island, you guys will start seeing what I'm saying is true, and we're not crazy for wanting to take back control. This movement is much better together, but is much bigger than just this room and everyone watching. It is something that can really change the economy of the United States, and something I'm proud to be a part of. So appreciate you all. Looking forward to seeing you again next week. Let me know if you got any questions. Let me know if you have any things. And like Felix said, it is the best retirement plan ever. It is secure. You are no longer accumulating wealth to draw it down. You are building up a financial basis that's guaranteed to grow. And then you can figure out how you can turn that into interest coming back to you. Another stage in working like the banks do. So be blessed, y'all. Thank you again. See you next time. See you next Thursday, 3 o'clock. Bring a friend. Bring a friend next week. Thanks, guys. So today we showed you the history of why Rome really fell. We showed you the clipping of coins by Caesar to quench his thirst for more, his greed, his need to not only prop up his civilization, to go out and to have more conquests, the best army, the best things, but also his lavish lifestyle. We've tied that to how it's very and eerily similar to fractional reserve banking. And then what's the solution? The solution is simple. The solution is taking radical ownership of our money and changing just one thing. Where does our surplus money go first? As Austrian economists like Murray Rothbard have taught us, and R. Nelson Nash to follow, it's simple. We're just changing one thing. Where does our money go first? How can we have our money growing uninterrupted, compound interest in one hand, and using that same dollar in the other hand to recapture all of the interest that we're giving away to our banking system today? I've showed you the pathway from history, thousands of years ago, to the current present, where we're at today, and how to guard against all the booms and busts and the cycles that will come if we keep doing what we're doing. So if you're tired of doing what you have been doing and it hasn't been working, why not learn more about the infinite banking process and how we can teach you how you can take back control of your money. Again, I appreciate you. You are in the 5%, giving the most valuable resource you have, your time, your money, your energy, to learn something new. If you've liked what you see, go ahead and smash the like button. Go ahead and subscribe and ring the bell so you're alerted to new content. Watch over here. Watch this next video, because I'm going to see you in the next video. Keep your learning going. Check out all the content on my YouTube channel. Check out this next video, and I will see you there. Be blessed.